I want you to picture a map for a second. But do me a favor and erase the cities.
Okay.
Erase the roads, the national borders, the oceans. Just forget the geography you learned in school.
I'm with you so far.
Instead, imagine a map where the highways are fiber optic cables and the capital cities are these clusters of servers hidden in, I don't know, underground bunkers or just nondescript office parks in places you couldn't find on a globe.
That is a very specific, and I have to say, a slightly ominous visual to start us off.
It's meant to be.
Yeah.
Because we are not mapping the visible world today. We are mapping the shadows. We're
Right.
talking about the infrastructure of the global digital underworld.
An underworld that, for a long time, has been basically invisible to the people trying to police it.
Exactly. But today, we're doing a deep dive into a document that claims to have finally drawn that map. We are looking at the Cybercrime Atlas Impact Report 2025, which is hosted at the World Economic Forum.
And this report it's really significant, not just because of who published it, but because it admits this really hard truth right from the start. It basically says that for the last decade, the bad guys have been, well, better at business than the good guys.
That's the asymmetry concept,
Yeah.
right? And honestly, it feels completely counterintuitive. I mean, you have governments with billions in funding, massive tech companies with armies of engineers. How are they losing the organizational game to criminals?
It all comes down to one word: friction. Or maybe the lack of it for the criminals.
Okay.
Think about a modern cybercrime syndicate. They don't just look like a multinational corporation. They operate like a completely frictionless one. They share code on dark web forums. They sell access as a service. They launder each other's money.
They're a network, a highly efficient, decentralized one.
Exactly. Now you look at the defenders, the banks, law enforcement, the tech giants. We're all trapped in silos.
Right.
A bank in Spain sees a fraudulent transaction. A tech company in Seattle sees the malware that caused it. And a police force in Nairobi sees the victim. But because of data privacy laws, competitive secrets, red tape, those three almost never talk to each other.
So the criminals are united by profit, and the defenders are divided by bureaucracy.
Precisely. And that is the fundamental problem the Cybercrime Atlas was built to solve. The mission isn't just, catch the hackers. It's to build a force multiplier, to create a shared knowledge base so these siloed groups can finally act like a network.
Fighting a network with a network.
That is the entire thesis.
We're going to get into the mechanics of how they're actually pulling this off, and the results are honestly startling,
Yeah.
especially some of the physical stuff they seized. But before we unroll this map of the underworld, I want to give a massive thank you to the partners who help us keep the lights on and bring you these deep dives. This episode is supported by www.securitybydesign.shop and www.generatepolicy.com.
And both of them are doing really vital work in this exact ecosystem we're discussing today.
They really are.
Yeah.
And listen, if you're looking to tighten up your own security architecture, maybe you want to avoid ending up on the wrong side of one of these maps. Or if you need help navigating the absolute nightmare that is policy generation, you need to see what they're offering. We've got special discount codes for both of them.
Yeah.
I'm not going to rattle off the codes here. You'll never remember them.
Yeah.
Just do yourself a favor. Open the episode description, scroll down, and grab those codes for www.securitybydesign.shop and www.generatepolicy.com. It is well worth the click.
Definitely check those out. It helps the show, and it helps you.
Okay, so let's get back to this asymmetry problem. The report claims to bridge this gap. But this is where I always get a little skeptical. We've heard about public-private partnerships for 20 years.
Sure.
And usually it's just a quarterly meeting with stale pastries where nothing happens. The barrier's always been legal. A bank can't just hand over customer data to Microsoft or Interpol.
Yeah.
So how is the Atlas getting around that?
That is the billion-dollar question. And the report highlights a very, very clever workaround. They didn't solve it by changing the laws.
Okay.
They solved it by changing the data source. They used a methodology called OSINT.
OSINT, right. Open source intelligence.
Exactly. The breakthrough here was realizing you don't need the secret proprietary bank data to start the investigation. You can start with what's publicly available. We're talking DNS records, IP registrations, public blockchain ledgers.
So because the data is technically public, the lawyers don't get involved right away.
It completely changes the timeline. The report explains that by relying on OSINT for the initial mapping, they They sidestep those privacy concerns. They can build a huge, detailed map of the criminal infrastructure before they ever need to touch a single piece of sensitive data.
It's like they're building the puzzle frame and the edges using pieces they just found on the sidewalk.
That's a great analogy.
And only once the picture is clear do they ask the bank for that one final missing piece.
And by that point, you have probable cause. You aren't fishing, you're verifying. It's a much easier ask.
So who's actually sitting at this table? Because if you're mapping the global criminal economy, you need more than just police.
The roster is fascinating, and it's growing fast. The report notes they went from about 22 organizations in the 2023-2024 cycle to over 30 in this latest one.
Okay.
You've got the founding heavyweights, Fortinet, Microsoft, PayPal, Banco Santander.
The usual suspects in cyber defense.
Right. But look at the new partners they added in late 2025. This is where you see the strategy. They brought in MasterCard, they brought in Recorded Future and SpyCloud, which are pure-play threat intel firms, and very interestingly, they brought in Lemon Cash.
I saw that. Lemon Cash is a crypto exchange.
Correct. And think about why that matters. If you're mapping a crime, you need to track the product and the money. Microsoft sees the product, the malware hitting the servers, but the money moves through crypto.
So Lemon Cash sees the payday.
And MasterCard sees the off-ramps back into regular currency. The report calls it strength in diversity. No single company sees the whole crime. The bank sees the theft, the threat intel firm sees the code, the crypto exchange sees the laundering.
So separately, it's just noise.
But together, it's a detailed schematic of the entire operation. It turns the silo problem on its head. Instead of the silos being a weakness, they become specialized sensors.
And they aren't just drawing these maps for fun, I take it.
Not at all. This isn't some academic project. This intelligence is being fed directly into operational units. And that's where we get into the Serengeti operations.
I have to admit, Operation Serengeti is a pretty cool name. It sounds like a spy thriller.
It does, doesn't it? But the results are very real. These are massive cross-border actions coordinated by Interpol and Afripol.
The African Union's police mechanism.
Right. And the Cybercrime Atlas effectively acted as the intelligence division for these police forces.
And the numbers for Serengeti 2.0, that was August 2025, they're just massive. We are not talking about a couple of hackers getting a slap on the wrist.
No, this was industrial-scale disruption. Across 19 countries, they made 1,006 arrests.
Over 1,000 arrests in one operation.
Yeah.
That's huge.
It's an unprecedented scale. And alongside the handcuffs, they executed 134,089 malicious network takedowns.
That number is hard to even visualize. That's 134,000 servers or botnets or command and control nodes just wiped off the map.
Yeah. And it compares very favorably to Serengeti 1 from the year before. You can see the curve just accelerating. But what really stood out to me wasn't just the digital stuff, it was the physical seizures.
This was the part that blew my mind. I think most people picture cybercrime as just, lines of code or maybe a guy in a hoodie. But the report lists heavy industrial equipment. They seized illicit power stations.
That one detail, it really drives home the scale of these operations, doesn't it?
I mean, how big does your criminal enterprise have to be that you need your own illicit power station?
We are talking about grid-scale cryptocurrency mining. These groups run data centers that consume so much electricity they can't just plug into the wall without alerting the utility company.
Or blowing a transformer.
Right, so they steal power or, in some cases, build their own off-grid infrastructure. It's wild.
It's like finding out a drug cartel built its own highway. It just shows the level of investment.
It does. They also seized hard drives, mining rigs, and recovered about $140 million in funds suspected to be from criminal activities.
$140 million is a serious hit to the balance sheet.
It is, but I would argue the money is actually the least damaging part for the criminals. There's a line in the report that I think is key. It says these operations undermine the personal networks of trust within the cybercrime community.
I highlighted that too. Talk about that for a second.
Yeah.
Why is trust such a vulnerability for them?
Because modern cybercrime is a service economy. If I'm a ransomware operator, I don't write the malware. I rent it. I don't launder the money. I hire a mule. I don't host the server. I pay a provider. There are no contracts.
So you just have to trust that the other guy won't rip you off or, more importantly, isn't an informant.
Exactly. It's all based on reputation. So when Operation Serengeti arrests 1,000 people at once, paranoia just explodes.
Yeah.
Who talked? Is my hosting provider compromised? Is the mule herder I use now working for Interpol? When that trust breaks down, business slows down. Friction gets introduced.
And that's the real goal.
Yeah.
But here's the counter-argument. We've seen this before. You arrest 1,000 people, and 6 months later, 1,000 new people step in. It's the classic whack-a-mole problem.
Right. And the report addresses that head on. They're trying to stop that cycle by shifting the target. They're moving from targeting the people to targeting the architecture. In November 2024, they launched the Research and Mapping Group.
And their job is to find what they call choke points.
Exactly. In military strategy, a choke point is a bridge or a strait everyone has to pass through.
So what's a digital choke point?
It's a single point of failure in the criminal supply chain. The idea is, don't chase the 1,000 individual scammers. Find the tools and services they all depend on.
Okay, so give us some examples. What are they trying to choke off?
The biggest one mentioned is bulletproof hosters.
That sounds tough. What makes a host bulletproof?
Well, a normal web host will take down a site if the police send a warrant. A bulletproof hoster markets themselves as the opposite. Their whole sales pitch is, we ignore everything, we keep no logs, we will not take you down.
So they are the safe haven.
They are the foundation. If you take down a major bulletproof hoster, you're not just stopping one crime. You might be knocking 500 different ransomware gangs and phishing sites offline at the same time. That's a choke point.
It's incredibly efficient. What else is on the list?
Mule herders.
I love the jargon in this industry. A mule herder.
It's descriptive, though. A money mule is the person who moves the stolen cash. But the herder is the middleman who manages a network of hundreds of them.
So the herder is the HR department for money laundering.
Basically, yeah. And recruiting and managing hundreds of humans is hard. It takes time. You arrest one hacker, he's replaced tomorrow. You arrest a top mule herder, that entire laundering channel collapses, and it takes months to rebuild.
You're attacking the logistics, not the soldiers.
That's the strategy. They also list things like crypto wallet seizures and closing down communications accounts. If you shut down the encrypted chat service where the black market lives, the market it ceases to exist.
So the Atlas provides the map to find these choke points, and then the police go in and blow up the bridge.
That's the theory, but there's a snag. Cybercrime is global, but policing is local. You might identify a choke point in a country that doesn't have the technical capability or the legal framework to take it down.
Right. You can have the best map in the world, but if the local authorities can't execute the raid, it's useless.
Which brings us to the final pillar of the report, capacity building. The Atlas isn't just hoarding this data. They're going on a world tour to teach local authorities how to actually use it.
And looking at the list of locations, it really was a tour.
It was. They mentioned Bangkok, Thailand in February 2025. Then Panama City in April for Interpol's Americas Working Group, then Podgorica, Montenegro in May for the Western Balkans.
These are very strategic locations. Southeast Asia, Central America, the Balkans. They're often transit hubs for this kind of activity.
For sure. But what's interesting is who they're training. I think the assumption is they're training the cyber cops, right? The report says they are training commanders, prosecutors, and policymakers.
So why focus on the suits instead of the geeks?
Because the geeks usually already know what's happening. The bottleneck is the decision makers. If a commander doesn't understand what OSINT is, they won't authorize the operation. If a prosecutor can't explain a blockchain transaction to a judge, the case gets thrown out.
That is a really good point. You can catch the guy, but if you can't convict him because the judge thinks Bitcoin is magic internet money, you've wasted your time.
Exactly. So they're building the human infrastructure to match the technical intelligence.
So bringing it all together then, we've got the OSINT methodology to map the network, we have the Serengeti operations proving it works, the choke point strategy to stop it from just popping back up, and the global training to make it all stick. When you step back, what's the headline here?
The headline is that the model works. The Cybercrime Atlas is proving that the only way to defeat a networked adversary is to become a network yourself. For years, the good guys were hierarchical and slow. Now, through this, they're becoming networked and fast.
And it looks like they are committed to it. The report mentions the grant has been extended to June 2027.
So they have runway. This isn't a one-off experiment. They're digging in for the long haul.
That's optimistic. But knowing you're looking at this public-private merger and seeing something else. Was it the provocative thought to leave us with?
Well, it's about the future of sovereignty, really. Look at the partners again. Microsoft, MasterCard, PayPal. These are for-profit, private companies. We are rapidly moving toward a world where private companies are as integral to global policing as the police themselves.
It's the privatization of intelligence.
In a way, yes. These companies have better visibility into the crime than the government does. They have the data. And now, through the Atlas, they have a seat at the operational table.
It raises some wild questions.
Hmm.
If the sheriff is a partnership between the government and a cloud provider, who's actually in charge?
Exactly. And does the line between corporate security and law enforcement just blur until it disappears? If you get banned from the digital financial system by this alliance, is that a legal punishment or a corporate terms of service violation?
That is a little bit terrifying to think about. It's effective, clearly, but it's a brave new world.
It is, and we'll have to see how that balance of power shifts in the 2026 report.
We certainly will. Well, that brings us to the end of this deep dive. Thank you for mapping the shadows with us today.
Always a pleasure. Stay curious.
And one last reminder, this deep dive was made possible by www.securitybydesign.shop and www.generatepolicy.com. Please support the people who support us. Go to the episode description right now, find those discount codes, and check them out.
Seriously, do it. It's worth it.
Until next time, keep watching the map.